This is every single fight to make after UFC On ABC 5, Emmett versus Topuria. I have all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I have hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal those opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria wins the main event dominantly, and in my opinion, and I'm going to break down why I believe this, has earned himself a title shot in the featherweight division. I think that Volkanovski might be next for Ilia Topuria if Volkanovski gets past Yair Rodriguez, which is a big if, because Yair is very dangerous as a matchup for Volkanovski. So if Yair Rodriguez wins, Ilia Topuria is going to be very upset because they're going to have to do a rematch, and then Ilia Topuria is probably going to have to fight Holloway after Holloway inevitably destroys the Korean Zombie in Singapore. So this is a massive matchup. The matchup between Volkanovski and Rodriguez is very important to decide the future of Ilia Topuria, but Volkanovski's the favorite. So if he does win against Yair Rodriguez, I think Ilia Topuria should be next. There's no one else in the featherweight division right now. Holloway's fighting the Korean Zombie. You can't give a quadrilogy to Holloway after he's lost the first 3 of the fights. Even if it was 2-1, it's hard to justify the fact that you are doing a quadrilogy. So I feel like they need to do Ilia Topuria next if Volkanovski wins. Because other than that, who is there? Arnold Allen coming off a loss. Brian Ortega coming off a loss. There's no one right now at the top of the division. And I think Ilia Topuria's win over Josh Emmett is better than Arnold Allen's win over Calvin Kattar. I think that Ilia Topuria's win over Josh Emmett is better than Brian Ortega's win ages ago against the Korean Zombie. And those are the best wins Ortega and Arnold Allen have. And since then, they've lost. So I'm going to have to go with Ilia Topuria next for the belt in the featherweight division. And I feel like this could happen in September in Australia. So I think Ilia Topuria needs to get right back to work, stay ready, get recovered soon as possible, maybe even try and be in the crowd on International Fight Week if Volkanovski wins, because why not be there? You know, we saw Volkanovski be there for Oliveira versus Makhachev, and that helped secure himself the title shot next. I'm not saying that Ilia Topuria needs to make weight as a backup, but at least be in the crowd, do an interview at the press conference beforehand, talk about what you think about the matchup between Volkanovski and Rodriguez, and I think if he does that, he could be next for Volkanovski in September if Volk beats Yair, which again is a massive if. But I know if Volk beats Yair, he's not going to be looking to wait until 2024 to fight Makhachev or to fight Aljamain Sterling coming up. So I think he's going to want to fight again before the end of the year. And I think he's going to try and rush it for September in Australia. We move on to another fighter that lost in the main event, Josh Emmett. He's going to need a lot of time off, in my opinion. So I think he's going to need to take on the winner of another matchup that I'm going to make in my head right now. So I reckon they should rebook Movsar Evloev versus Bryce Mitchell. I liked the matchup in the first place. I also feel like Movsar Evloev would win that matchup, I'll be honest. However, watching Diego Lopez do really good against Movsar Evloev, I do think Bryce Mitchell has a decent chance. So this could be Josh Emmett versus Bryce Mitchell, but Josh Emmett just lost to number 9 Ilia Topuria, so I think Emmett's going to move down from number 5 to number 7 or number 8, and Ilia might even get number 3 above Ortega and Arnold Allen. So I feel like Josh Emmett should move down to number 8 or 9, and I think he should be used now, because he's an older fighter. He should be used to try and bring up another fighter into the top 10, and I think that fighter would be the winner of Movsar Evloev versus Bryce Mitchell. I say rebook Evloev versus Mitchell for October. Bryce Mitchell has been posting stuff on Instagram. I checked it before I even made this video, saying that he's ready to get back in there. He's healing up good. Movsar Evloev is saying the same thing. In fact, he was saying he wanted to fight in July, so he's ready to get back in there as well. I say do Josh Emmett versus the winner of Evloev versus Mitchell. Whenever they want to make Evloev Mitchell's fine. Maybe they do it in September on a fight night card instead to make it a little bit sooner, and maybe Josh Emmett can take on the winner of that in December, and I think that would work in terms of what they're going to do for the future of the featherweight division. You can't be doing Josh Emmett favors like giving him Brian Ortega or giving him a loser of Rodriguez, Volkanovski, if it's Rodriguez. You've got to now sacrifice Emmett to another contender coming up, because that's 2 losses in a row, and he's 35 years of age. Get rid of him, if you know what I'm saying. But big respect to Emmett. he will take those matchups, but get rid of him. You know what I'm saying? Do him versus the winner of Evloev versus Mitchell. And I'll be honest, he has a good chance against Evloev. You know what I mean? Evloev was getting tagged up by Lopez. If Emmett hits you like that, it ain't Lopez. We move on to the co-main event winner, Maycee Barber. Got a big win, the biggest win of her career in the co-main event by TKO over Amanda Ribas. Very good performance. Iffy in the first round, but she took advantage of Ribas going for the leg and then finished her in the second round with a nice little combination. I say keep Maycee Barber somewhat active. Not too active, but before the end of the year. And I say put her in there against Katlyn Chookagian, who now has a different surname I noticed in the rankings, but I can't quite remember it. But I know her as Katlyn Chookagian. You guys do as well, if you know her, that is. And I think that should be taking place in November in MSG on that pay-per-view card, on the prelims. I think it's a good spotlight to put them in on the prelims of that pay-per-view card. And Katlyn Chookagian, I believe, is from the New York, New Jersey, northeast part of the US anyway, so I think that's a nice fight for her in her home area of the US, I guess you could say. And Maycee Barber is another up-and-comer that you'd want on one of those big pay-per-view cards on the prelims, so I think it's time to put Maycee back on the pay-per-views, put her on the prelims against Katlyn Chookagian, and I think that'll be a big matchup, and it'll be a jump up the rankings for Maycee Barber as well. And then if she wins that one, she can start looking at that top 5 to try and get her title shot. We move on to another fighter on the card. Brendan Allen got a huge win over Bruno Silva. Biggest win of his career. Very, very impressive. Won it impressively as well. Said he wants to get right back in there in October. Someone who pulled out of a fight in June recently with Brendan Allen. Someone who was supposed to fight Brendan Allen in June that got injured and is probably going to be back at the end of the year anyway, is Jack Hermansson. So I say rebook that matchup. Rebook that fight. It's a nice matchup. And something I like about this, the same reason I want to do Topuria Mitchell again, or Evloev Mitchell again, is because so many fighters these days, more than ever, are talking about this guy doesn't want to fight me, that guy doesn't want to fight me. When you get two guys that have already signed a contract to fight each other before, but it just didn't end up happening, you have proof that they actually do want to fight. So why waste your time saying Brendan Allen versus this guy or that top contender, and then like maybe have a chance that they say, no, I'm not taking on number 11 Brendan Allen right now, or number 13 Brendan Allen, wherever he's ranked. So once you know that a matchup can be made and both parties are interested in fighting each other, rebook it if you can, because it wastes no time. So I say do an October Fight Night card, put this as the co-main event, and do Brendan Allen versus Jack Hermansson. I think it's a nice little gradual step up for Brendan Allen, who's a young fighter. I don't think he's ready for the Jared Cannoniers of the division, but he might be ready for the Jack Hermanssons of the division, especially a Jack Hermansson coming off an injury, getting up there in age. Brendan Allen's 27 years of age, putting together a hell of a win streak. I say put him in there with Hermansson, co-main event of a fight night in the Apex, or on the prelims of a pay-per-view. Make it happen in October when Brendan Allen wants to return. Maybe even do it at the start of November, who knows. We move on to another fighter who won on the prelims. Neil Magny got a big win against Philip Rowe in a very close fight. So now he's beaten an up-and-coming contender. You know what he's earned himself? Another up-and-coming contender. And I think that up-and-coming contender should be Kevin Holland if he beats Michael Chiesa. We've already seen Chiesa beat Neil Magny, but I think that Neil Magny is the guy who takes on anyone. He just is. So Kevin Holland, if he does get a jump on Michael Chiesa and put himself at the bottom of those rankings, he should be getting Neil Magny next, in my opinion. I think that would be the perfect matchup for him. Both long-rangey guys. I think it's a good style matchup for him as well, because although Neil Magny can grapple, he's not dominant offensively in the grappling, and the fight will take place at range on the feet or up against the cage in the clinch. I think Holland will be okay in the clinch. He's got nasty elbows, good knees to the body as well, as we saw against Anthony Hernandez when he was at middleweight. Really nasty elbows in the close range. And Neil Magny versus Kevin Holland, it's just a fight that I know Neil Magny will accept, and I can see the UFC trying to push on Neil Magny because Kevin Holland's the guy they're trying to get a win, and Neil Magny's the guy who gets up-and-coming contenders wins, unless they're as bad as Philip Rowe. Neil Magny, Kevin Holland, big matchup, make it happen. If Holland wins in July, do it in November, later this year. That's all that needs to be said. We move on to another matchup. Randy Brown won on the prelims against Wellington Turman in a little bit of a lackluster performance. So I was originally thinking, you know what, they fought on the same card. Why not do Neil Magny versus Randy Brown and just, you know, have the same similar style, rangy striker, also capable of grappling fighter match up against each other. It'll be an interesting style matchup to see. But I don't think Randy Brown has earned a ranked opponent. He just lost to JDM. He just beat a guy in Wellington Turman who wasn't even ranked at welterweight anywhere, and I'm including outside the top 15 as well. He wasn't in the welterweight division. He was at middleweight, unranked, and then came into the welterweight division and now lost. Randy Brown didn't dominate him. He didn't look good. He didn't finish him. He arguably lost. I think you need to give him another up-and-comer. Not up-and-comer, but another guy coming off some wins in the welterweight division that's on a similar schedule, and I think that guy's Nicholas Dalby. Although it's weird, and I'd rather another up-and-comer be the guy, Nicholas Dalby's putting together quite a win streak right now. I think he's got 3 or 4 in a row. And he just beat a good opponent in Muslim Salikov. So he's quite highly ranked outside the rankings in the welterweight division. I feel like he's top 25 or top 30. Same with Randy Brown. And I think the winner of that one can start looking towards the bottom of the rankings in the welterweight division, or a matchup that's going to get them put at number 15, or just a matchup that's going to guarantee them a ranked opponent next. So I think do Randy Brown versus Nicholas Dalby. I think it'll be a sick matchup, massive matchup as well. Not a massive matchup. It'll be like the headliner of the prelims of a fight night or something, or on the main card of a fight night, who knows. Do it in October, September, November, end of the year, and then the winner of that one can start moving on to dangerous fighters and trying it out again at the top of the division. So Randy Brown, Nicholas Dalby, they both fought around the same time. Dalby fought last weekend, I'm pretty sure. Randy Brown just fought, so put them against each other. They're on similar schedules. We move on. David Onama got a big win against someone. I think his name's Gabriel Santos or something like that. Got a big win over him. A comeback win as well in the second round. Got the KO. Had the celebration. Cringe. Pathetic. Disgusting. But David Onama versus Jack Jenkins. Just won on the same card. In an uneventful performance over Jamal Emmers. But they're both featherweights. They both just fought on the same card. Although Onama got rocked a few times, and Jack Jenkins did get hit a few times as well, it's not like they can't make a quick turnaround here. So I say put them on the September pay-per-view prelims, and if Onama's such a big fan of Adesanya, and he just did the celebration, you kind of want him on the prelims of the Adesanya card. Plus, he's African, so Adesanya's probably going to like run into him on Embedded and say, hello, my friend, and put on the African accent that he does, that he doesn't normally have, that changes whenever he suits him. But David Onama, Israel Adesanya, I think it'd be good to build Onama off of Adesanya's card, if you know what I'm saying. He just did the celebration. People are talking about the fact that he just did the Adesanya celebration. Put him on the same card as Adesanya, another African, and put Jack Jenkins there against him, an Australian, in Australia, in September. It makes all the sense in the world. They're on the same schedule. They're around the same area outside the rankings. They both need momentum, and they need to get it off each other. We move on to another potential matchup, which is Tabatha Ricci. She needs a fight. And she needs a fight that's a ranked opponent at this point. She's won a lot in a row. She just beat Gillian Robertson. So I think Tabatha Ricci needs to be put in there against a highly ranked women's strawweight called Tecia Torres. Dangerous matchup because Tecia Torres is actually pretty good, to be honest with you. And I think she won against Mackenzie Dern and got robbed. So I think she's very good. A lot better than her ranking suggests. I think they should do Tabatha Ricci versus Tecia Torres. Similar styles, make it happen, move her up the rankings in the strawweight division. Plus, Tecia Torres is basically part-timing the fight game right now. She's barely fighting, maybe once a year if we're lucky. So, let's just use her to try and move someone else up at this point. No favors for people that are doing no favors for the UFC. Let's do Tabatha Ricci versus Tecia Torres. I think it makes all the sense in the world as a matchup in that strawweight division, and I like it very much indeed. We move on to another fighter on the prelims who got a big win in Mateusz Rebecki. He got a huge win on the prelims over Loic Radzhabov. He's now 2-0 in the lightweight division, and he won on the contender series as well. So he's got a bit of momentum now. He needs a bit of a tougher opponent in his upcoming matchup. And I think that tougher opponent could be Mike Davis, who we don't see ever. He's on a win streak. He's doing good. We haven't seen him all year. And I think he was maybe fought at the start of last year or the middle of last year or something along those lines, maybe the end of last year, if I'm not mistaken. We don't see this guy fight more than once a year. I have no idea why, but you're not going to get jumped up the rankings when you play like that. When you fight once a year, people have forgotten about you 6 months after you win. So he's never getting momentum and name value to really jump him up the rankings. So I say put him in there against Rebecca at the end of the year, in November, somewhere along those lines. Him versus Rebecca in November makes all the sense in the world. And the winner of that one can start looking at those names just outside the rankings in the lightweight division. I think that would be a sick striking match, though, between Rebecca and Mike Davis. I think the grappling would cancel each other out, and I think we'd see them both trading back and forth. Davis looking for straight punches and a bit more technical with his shots, and Rebecca looking for knockout blows like the new Drew Dober on the block. You know what I'm saying? So Rebecca versus Davis, big matchup in that division, in the lightweight division. And other than that, there was another matchup I was going to make. Oh, yeah. Justin Tuffer got eye-poked by Austin Lane. I couldn't fit them on the screen. That's not a fat joke about Tuffer. I just couldn't fit them on the screen. And I feel like they should be rebooked against each other in Australia in September. It was an eye poke. He's going to recover from it pretty quickly. They didn't take any damage whatsoever. Just rebook the matchup in September on the early prelims of that Australia pay-per-view card. But I think these are all the matchups to make. And again, Ilia Topuria is next for the title shot. You can't get... People are saying, I think you should have to fight Holloway first. No. What people are doing is they're Holloway fans, so they're trying to give any reason to somehow make a Holloway quadrilogy with Volk. We don't really want it. It's just going to be, another fight between these two again. You know what I mean? You want to have a fresh contender for Volk if he does get past Rodriguez. So just do him versus Ilia Topuria. Makes all the sense in the world. Topuria is going to be number 3 in the division. We gave Garbrandt a title shot when he was number 7 because Cruz didn't have a matchup. You know what I mean? We can drop down to number 3. It doesn't have to be number 1 every time in the division. And even have to make an interim belt, a fake interim belt, just so Yair jumps above Holloway so they can justify it. We don't need that. Just give him number 3. Ilia Topuria. Like and subscribe. Toodle pip. Goodbye. See you later.